We talked about Harry Potter last week. Harry Potter, at the beginning of his story, his parents are dead. I didn't write it. His parents are dead. He's stuck with the Dursleys, who treat him like trash. Meanwhile, his cousin Dudley, spoiled and selfish, gets everything he wants. Harry thinks it and feels that it's completely unfair. The good kid suffers and the bad kid prospers. Think about Katniss Everdeen in the Hunger Games. She's barely surviving in District 12. She's hunting just to keep her family alive. Meanwhile, the people in the capital laugh, feast, and live in luxury while others suffer for their entertainment. It doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem fair. The people doing the least good are having the most comfort. And the people who have the least comfort are the ones doing most good. Now, Jeremiah would have been able to relate to both of those situations. Jeremiah was called to be a prophet when he was a teenager. Think about that for a minute. Called to be a prophet of God when he was a teenager. His job was to deliver truth to the nation of Israel. And it was a truth they did not want to hear. Jeremiah lived in Judah's darkest day. Now, we got to go back because you got to get the history of this. Okay? Do you remember when we walked through, we acted out our history story up here with people? Okay? Remember, after Solomon, what happens to the nation of Israel? Just yell it out. It splits. 10 tribes and 2 tribes. Northern kingdom, southern kingdom. Who attacks the northern kingdom and basically destroys them and runs them all the way? Do you remember? Not the Babylonians, that's coming next. Assyria. Assyria comes and basically does away with the northern kingdom. All that's left is the southern kingdom called what? You remember the 2 tribes that make up the southern kingdom? Judah and Benjamin. Basically, the shorthand was just to call it Judah because that was the main tribe, right? So, Judah was the shorthand for the southern kingdom. Corruption, idolatry, and injustice are everywhere in Judah. Everywhere. The kings were selfish, the priests were corrupt, and the people had turned their back on God and turned to idols. In Jeremiah's own hometown, his neighbors even tried to plot and kill him. They didn't like his message. You know what his message was? His message was, listen, because of your wickedness and because of your idolatry, the Babylonians are going to come in here. They are going to destroy Jerusalem. They are going to take us captive. Do not fight back or you'll die. And in 70 years, we'll get to come back. They thought he was just being an alarmist. They thought he was just exaggerating. They thought he was being ridiculous. And they wanted to shut up his message. Jeremiah was suffering for obeying God. The wicked people around him seemed to be thriving. So just like Harry and his cousin, just like Katniss and the capital, Jeremiah is doing the right thing. He's obeying God. And yet the bad guys seem to be thriving. But Jeremiah does something that Harry and Katniss cannot do because in their world there is no God that is mentioned. He takes his frustrations straight to Yahweh, straight to the Lord. When life, I want you to catch this big idea. When life doesn't seem fair, God invites us to bring our honest questions and complaints to him. Listen to that. We ain't talked about this yet when it comes to prayer. We haven't got to this yet. When life doesn't seem fair, God invites us to bring our honest questions and our complaints to him. And that is exactly what Jeremiah does in the first 4 verses of Jeremiah 12. First point tonight, when faith talks back. Look at verse 1. Here's how Jeremiah starts his prayer. Righteous are you, O Yahweh, when I complain to you. Before he asks a hard question, before he complains, he acknowledges God's righteousness. So I want to ask this question. Why do you think Jeremiah starts this way? Why do you think Jeremiah, he's about to pray a prayer of complaint? Why do you think he starts with righteous are you, O Yahweh? Yes. Okay, he's humbling himself. Yes. God is above him. By declaring this, isn't Jeremiah basically telling God, God, I'm not coming to you rebelling. I know you're righteous. So he wants to start off by saying, Lord, I'm going to complain to you, but I need you, I want you to understand, God, I don't think that I'm not coming to you in rebellion. I'm genuinely coming to you confused, hurt, frustrated, but I'm not coming rebelling, because by declaring God is righteous, he's saying, I'm not saying that what's happening is that what you're doing is unrighteous and not good. He's coming to God with reverence, not rebellion, even in his frustration. Then Jeremiah asks a very, very hard question about God's justice. Look at what he says, verse 1. He says, Yet I would plead my case before you. Why does the way of the wicked prosper? Why do all those who are treacherous thrive? Have you ever felt nervous about asking God why? I've asked God why. Why do you think we struggle to be honest with God sometimes? Because this is real honest. I mean, Jeremiah is like, listen, God, why are the wicked people prospering? Why are the people that hate you thriving when I'm being obedient and my life is being threatened every day? He's being really honest with God. Why do we struggle sometimes to be honest with God? Why do you think? Lucas?
I think it's easy for us to say that or ask that and feel or come across as like me myself above God. I know better. I think if we realize that before we ask, I don't want to be thinking of it for God. I still have this.
Why is it why is it hard to be honest with him, period? Not just when we're complaining or questioning or frustrated, but why is it hard to be honest with God in general? Frank? James, my gosh. Okay. We feel guilty. We feel ashamed. What about, here's what I think of. We are so good at pretending that we even try to pretend with God. Like, we're so used to putting on the mask and pretending everything's good, everything's fine, I'm doing great, I'm not struggling, things aren't difficult, things aren't hard. And we come to church, we get around our Christian friends, and we are so good at pretending that everything is fine. It is almost habitual that we do it with God as well. Even though we know intellectually, God knows I'm faking this. We're deceiving ourselves. But I love here that Jeremiah is just being honest. He's struggling the same way that Job struggled. In Psalm 73, I think you have this text in front of you, do you not? Psalm 73? You got that on your notes?
Yes.
You do have it? Psalm 73? Oh, that's later? Never mind. This question is a question that Habakkuk asked. It's a question that David asked. It's a question that Job asked. It is a very universal question. Why do the wicked succeed while the righteous suffer? Imagine a student who studies hard, does their homework, plays fair, doesn't cheat, but struggles just to pass. Meanwhile, other students in class cheat, they don't care, they break the rules, they don't pay attention, and somehow they get better grades and more recognition. If you were that faithful student, you would want the cheater called out. You would want fairness and justice to be done. Well, that's Jeremiah's frustration. He wants justice. He wants fairness. Listen, God is not afraid of your honest questions. He is a big God. He can handle it. God would rather have you wrestle with him than walk away from him. If you're taking notes, write that down. God would rather you wrestle with him than just walk away from him. And that's what happens sometimes when we're struggling and we have real questions, and instead of going to God and wrestling with God with these difficult things, sometimes we just run the other way. Jeremiah doesn't do that. Psalm 62:8, you do have this, says, pour out your heart before him. 1 Peter 5:7 says, cast all your anxieties on him because he cares for you. Do not be afraid to take your faith and have your faith talk back to God. Always remembering, this is not about rebellion, this is about relationship. Second thing, the shine of fake success. Jeremiah, verse 2, this is kind of the second half of verse 1, but also in verse 2, he looks at the wicked and he says, you plant them and they take root. They grow and produce fruit. What picture comes to your mind when you hear this? What imagery comes to mind when you hear the words Jeremiah saying to God, you plant these wicked people, they take root, and they grow and produce fruit? Yes. Okay, somebody else? Huh? Yeah, well, he feels like things are in Noah's time. But this here's what he's saying. Here's what he's saying. I'm coming to you. He is saying, Lord, it looks like you're the one that is prospering them. You plant them, they take root, and fruit gets produced, and they get to enjoy that. Outwardly, it looks like they are thriving and strong and successful. The shocking thing about this statement is that he's basically saying to God, God, it looks like you're the one doing this and allowing this. What does this mean? Verse 2. You are near in their mouth and far from their heart. What does that mean? You are near in their mouth and far from their heart.
They know you exist, but they're not worshiping.
Are they giving lip service to God? In other words, would they still be doing the sacrifices and singing the songs and doing the rituals? And they'd be doing all of that, right? What about you?
So they've been doing they worship him, but then their heart's not in it. It's kind of like your actions are louder than your words. What they do is against the Lord, but they say that they're for the Lord. Basically, kind of like false preachers, fake believers. One who say, "I'm doing this for the Lord," but doing the most evil thing.
Yeah, and what's crazy is it's almost like, God, do you not see this?
They're using your name in vain.
Yeah, like God, these people.
And turning it into something disgusting, evil out of your name when you're supposed to represent holiness and love. They turn it into a symbol of hate.
And that's what he's basically spewing back to God. God, these people acknowledge you with their mouths. They go through the religious activities, but their hearts do not care about you. And yet they're the ones prospering. They're the ones that look like the strong tree that's bearing fruit. When I hear this, I think of Psalm chapter 1. You know what happens in Psalm chapter 1? You know what Psalm chapter 1 says? It says, don't walk among the wicked. Instead, you know what it says to do? Be like a tree that's planted by a river of water. You bear fruit in time. So it's almost like he's saying, God, you've told us that the people that are going to be like roots and trees are the people that are planted by your living stream. And yet I look at them and I'm like, looks like they're the ones that are this way, not me. Think about social media influencers who post Bible verses in their captions, but their videos show a very different lifestyle, far from God. Outwardly, they look rooted, they look successful, lots of followers, money, recognition, but inwardly, their hearts are far from him. Here's what Jeremiah knows, but he doesn't feel. Outward success does not equal God's blessing. Just because someone has outward success, that doesn't mean God is blessing them. He very well may be giving them over to their wicked selves. Now you can look at Psalm 73:3. Asaph, who's writing this, he says, "For I was envious of the arrogant when I saw the prosperity of the wicked." He's admitting, I get jealous. I get jealous when I look at the evil people prospering. Then verses 16 and 19, he says this, "But when I thought on how to understand this, it seemed to me a wearisome task until I went into the sanctuary of God." Until I actually went close to the heart of God. And here's what he found out. "Then I discerned their end. Truly you set them in slippery places. You will make them fall to ruin. How they are destroyed in a moment, swept away utterly by terrors." Do you remember the story that Jesus told of the house built on the sand and the house built on the rock and the strong foundation? When you look at those two houses, doesn't the house built on the sand look fine? What happens when God's judgment comes? Does it stand? I can hear what you said. The tidal wave what? Yeah. Yeah, and God's judgment is going to bring that. And what happens is all this outward stuff is not real. It looks like they're a strong tree with deep roots, but guess what? They're not. And when God's judgment comes, they fall and they're destroyed. Next point, the cry of the overlooked. Verse 3. Jeremiah now turns this to himself. So he's praying to God. He says, "God, the wicked are prospering. It doesn't look like you are doing anything about this. It looks like you're actually blessing them for their wickedness." and their sin. And then he turns it to himself. He says, but you, O Yahweh, you know me. You see me. And you test my heart toward you. In other words, Lord, you know that I've been faithful to you. You know that I'm the one suffering. How does it make you feel knowing that God sees your heart even when other people don't? Okay? I think there's two responses. You feel guilty because you know sometimes I ain't what I fake. And sometimes you get comfort because you know you've been faithful even when other people are hating on you and other people are attacking you. You know you've done what God's called you to do. That is the attitude of Jeremiah here. He's like, you called me to be a prophet. I preached what you told me to preach. I told the people what you told me to tell them. I'm the one with my life being threatened. He's going to go to prison. They're going to throw him in prison. They're going to persecute him while they look like they're prospering and everything's going great. And now his honesty turns really raw. He says, pull them out like sheep for the slaughter. Set them apart for the day of slaughter. Dang, now he's getting like, Lord, pull these people like sheep out of the sheep pen and lead them to their slaughter and death. Think about how angry he seems here. God, you see me, and yet I keep suffering. Bring justice. Bring justice. The good news is that God sees the real you even when other people don't. And being faithful may not bring instant reward. It may not happen right away. It may not happen instantaneously, but God knows and he remembers, and eventually you're being tempted to give up and you quit. Don't, because you're not being unnoticed. God knows. God knows that Jeremiah has been faithful. Galatians 6, verse 9, you have this in your notes. Let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. So when you go and you make your complaint to God, and you're asking God why, and you're wrestling with these difficult, hard situations, guess what you don't do in the midst of the complaining? You don't quit. You don't give up. What I said earlier is so true. You wrestle. You fight. You keep running. You keep going, even in the midst of your frustration and your anger and your complaint. Jeremiah now kind of widens his complaint because he's going to talk about sin spoiling everything in verse 4. How long will the land mourn, and the grass and every field wither? For the evil of those who dwell in it, the beasts and the birds are swept away, because they say, he will not see our latter end. You know what he's doing here? He's saying, Lord, their wickedness is polluting the entire land. It is corrupting the animals. It is corrupting the land. Everything is being corrupted. Sin does not just affect the person doing the sinning. Everybody around them gets contaminated. When you hear this, what do you think about? When you hear this language of sin affecting the land and affecting the animals, what are things that come to your mind already? Yes. Satan meaning what? Think about stories that that have already been taught in Scripture. Yes, Eliab.
Well,
No, we're talking about even before this story. Noah and the ark. Why does God have to kill all the animals that have come in contact with wicked, sinful human beings? Because everything's been polluted. When Adam and Eve sin, everything gets corrupted. Everything gets spoiled. These people are living as if there's no consequences. And even the land and the animals and the birds and everything is reaping the consequences of it. And they don't seem to care. Think about a company that dumps their waste into a river. At first, it seems like they benefit from this. They save money. They don't have to go through the proper channels of actually disposing of their waste. But soon, fish began to die. Families downstream get sick. Farmers lose crops. One group's decision and greed spreads suffering to many. That's the point here. Sin always spreads further than we think. Romans 8, 20 through 22. For the creation was subjected to futility. This is in your notes. Not willingly. In other words, the animals didn't do anything wrong. But they were subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself will be set free from its bondage to corruption and obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. For we know that the whole creation has been groaning together in the pains of childbirth until now. When Adam and Eve's sin affected all of creation, and all of creation is groaning for everything to be made right. So we have Jeremiah, his faith, talking back to God, complaining, bringing his questions, wrestling with God. We have the fake shine of success in the people that look like they're thriving. Jeremiah feels like he's being overlooked. God, I know you see me, but things are not changing. And then we see how the sin of these people are spoiling everything. So what do I want us to take away from all of this about prayer? Well, Jeremiah shows us something powerful. Jeremiah didn't hide his pain, but he also didn't rebel against God. He began with respect. He poured out his frustration. And God did not silence him, did he? Did God go, you shut your mouth right now, Jeremiah? Not at all. He listened. That's the difference between being honest and rebelling. Rebelling says, God, I don't trust you. I'll do my own thing. Honesty says, God, I don't understand, but I'm still coming to you because I know you're righteous. You see the difference? Rebelling says, God, I don't trust you, so I'm going to do my own thing. Honesty says, God, I don't understand, but I'm going to come to you because I know you're righteous. Listen to this statement very carefully. All right, listen, students. It is not rebellious to take your complaints to God. It's actually relationship. It's not rebellion. It's relationship. So here's the challenge for you this week. This week, when things seem unfair, don't just vent to your friends. Don't just post something online. Don't just keep it bottled up. Do what Jeremiah did. Pour it out to the Lord. He's big enough to handle your questions. He loves you enough to listen. Take it to him. A lot of people complaining in this world. A lot of people griping. A lot of people don't like how things go. That's easy. Anybody can vent to their friends, post online, gripe and complain. That's easy. What God wants us to do is be like Jeremiah. Take it to God.